right, moving on to policy. What do we have tonight? Approval, first readings. Just a motion and a second, or do we discuss? Rob, any issues?
No.
Okay, I need a motion then.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any questions? Rob? All right, moving on to new business, discussion items. Who's going first with this time? We're gonna have
Seal of Biliteracy.
Mrs. Hanaway, E&L
Mrs.
and
Hanaway?
Board Director for the Seal of Biliteracy
Hey, how are you
for
today?
our students.
I'm fine, thank you. Let me just grab, let me get that document. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you for listening today. I'm really excited to be able to present our new seal of biliteracy to Netwa High School. We met as a committee starting last year. There were probably 10 of us that met throughout the year, planning, preparing, and creating the documents that we are finalizing as we speak. So basically,
No, it's the arrow.
it's the
It's
right
not
number.
working for you. There you go. You had to do that?
So the Seal of Biliteracy is a nationwide event where states get to create programs for the school districts. And so what we did was we used the criteria that was established by the Board of Regents in New York State to develop this program, this pathway for students to earn the Seal of Biliteracy. It recognizes students who demonstrate a very high level of proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in one or more languages, in addition to English. So they have the opportunity to earn this seal by speaking any other language besides English. So it can be Spanish, French, and Italian, which we have in our high school, but it can also be Turkish, Urdu, Chinese, and other languages. So the goal is to celebrate the accomplishments and the level of literacy that these students have in our district. Provides a really unique opportunity for students, including the ENL students, to showcase their achievements in biliteracy. So we have a lot of ENL students that come from other countries. They're learning English and they have their home languages. So that group of students have that same opportunity as native speakers of English have to learn additional languages and be celebrated for that. So the Seal of Biliteracy will encourage students to study new languages. It recognizes the value of language diversity. It will identify the high school graduates with language and biliteracy skills for employers. So when they graduate high school, the seal will be affixed to their diploma. It will also be on their transcript. And so colleges and businesses will be able to recognize that these students are biliterate, and hopefully it will help them gain an edge over others in life. And it can provide universities with additional information about their language literacy skills. So, we really feel that this is going to help build the 21st century skills that students need to have in order to be successful in our district. So the application process. So their requirements include the development of a portfolio, which they will do a research-based project in both English and in their second language or third. And they'll demonstrate their language skills by doing a research project and writing up a paper, in addition to presenting in front of classes of students and getting evaluated by both students themselves and the committee, the biliteracy committee members. The committee is tasked with ensuring students that they've met the prerequisites. So there, in front of you, you have a packet of the various pathways students can follow. And also on that second page, it lists the criteria that the students need in order to gain the seal of biliteracy. So they need 3 points total in English and 3 points in a second language. So once they acquire those 6 points total, they'll be able to earn that seal. So, and one of the pieces of that is a portfolio. So they'll collect pieces of writing, they'll do presentations, they'll present to the committee, and then we make a final determination if they've met that high level, that intermediate high level of proficiency that is necessary to earn the seal. And they'll get a seal, a seal of completion for that. So, community benefits. So we really are excited about it because it not only allows students to be successful and feel the success of being biliterate, but we also would like to extend the invitation to bilingual community members to help evaluate student portfolios, to listen to the presentations that students are presenting for their portfolio projects. We'd like to build community awareness of world languages and its application to their futures. We want to really showcase the talent that our students have in the district. And in the future, we'd like to create a World Language Awareness Day to celebrate all of this as well. So we're going to start this year. We're going to start small. We will offer it out to our 12th graders that are graduating this year. And they will go through our application process, do the portfolio, and meet that criteria to earn that seal of biliteracy. And over the next few years, we'd like to move it down towards the middle school level where students first begin their language study, and celebrate them at the end of 8th grade, presenting them with certificates of their candidacy for the seal of biliteracy, just to keep that encouragement and support up from 7th grade on, maybe earlier than that in the future. So those who've met the criteria and show excellence in the world languages will receive an award on and so we hope that this will grow and develop into something that's really a positive thing for us in the district. And that's the overall presentation.
Good, thank you. Question though, how, you said a senior right now could get this?
They can, because some of the criteria is earning an 80 or above or 85 or above on their English Regents exam. They will go through the portfolio process, that research-based process for their second language, which the world language teachers are going to be very involved in and help guide them through that process. So we have support from the world language teachers who will help advise students that want to be candidates for it, and they will be able to succeed by the end of the school year.
They were told about this already?
Not yet. We're rolling it out next week. So
That's still enough time.
plenty. Yes. We have a timeline that will fit very quickly.
So even though if they're a senior, the last time that they took a language was maybe 10th grade?
They have, part of the requirement is to be able to exhibit intermediate high levels of proficiency in that language, so they would have to demonstrate that. So, and what we'd like to see is for students to continue languages through 12th grade, because a college level course will easily demonstrate that type of proficiency. So, on a case-by-case basis, of course, we'll evaluate every student that is interested.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mrs. Donnelly, she has a presentation with the fiscal climate.
Thank you. I'd like to start at the end, just to show where we're going to be going. This is the calendar for this year. It's similar to last year. We started actually last year kicking off last budget meeting, last board meeting. We kicked off the budget process with the adoption of the budget development guidelines. So, this is tonight's presentation. It'll be posted on the website probably tomorrow. The goal here is getting to the vote But you can see I'm waiting now for information for the fiscal stress presentation. That's not out yet by the state controller's office yet. So next meeting already, we'll be talking about projected state aid. We got those runs last week. Working on a presentation also to include the tax levy calculation. Then we'll move into staffing and enrollment. And then, soon after that, we're doing line-by-line expenditures for the first draft and the second draft following that. This calendar will also be, obviously it's part of this presentation, but it'll be separate on the website as well. So the purpose of this presentation is just to give you an overview of the climate we're in this year. You can see, these are the ingredients that go into the tax levy calculation, so that very much affects the climate that we're in for this year. We do not have a significant enough increase in either of the pension contribution rates, either for the New York State local retirement system, which is commonly called ERS, or in the TRS contribution rate. So those differences aren't great enough to impact on the tax levy calculation. The third factor that affects the calculation is the tax-based growth factor, which is most easily defined as the brick and mortar enhancements, additions within the district. That's at a flat 1. So that's where we are for that. The allowable levy growth factor is capped at 2%, which is why everybody thinks that the cap is 2%. But we've seen there are other factors that play into the calculation. But here's where that 2% comes into play, because the CPI was actually 2.13. So it can't go higher than 2%. And then the complex one, which will come into play, is the capital tax levy exclusion, which accounts for the interplay between what the district's building aid is and what the district's debt service is. So those are the calculations I'll be working on quite a bit in preparation for the next meeting and the next presentation. The allowable levy growth factor is just showing where that one piece where I told you this year we're at 2%, where it's been over the last couple of years. You can see we're really low here in 16, 17 at, barely above 0, 1.26% last year, and now at the 2%, which it can't be higher than. We did get the state runs, and we have just the executive proposal, not the final state runs, which don't come out till end of March, or even as late as April 1st. But you can at least see the comparison between foundation aid from last year to this year, going up imperceptibly, just by a small quarter of 1%. And our total aid last year as compared to this year, again, this amount will also be, this piece is also affected by building aid. I need to actually fit apart the building aid figure and pull out the projections which include building aid that we won't actually get, because that information is not actually provided for us. That's dependent on cost report is in, if the substantial completion is done, if everything's in place for the building aid to actually come through. What triggers it being included in this number is whether a form was filed. So that needs some work from me. So that's subject to change. This is just showing how this total aid compares to last year. We're up by 2.1%. In the projection. We don't have the final yet. This just graphically depicts how our executive budget proposal state aid has been over the last year. So you can see this year is a relatively small increase over the prior year. here we see the declining enrollment. It looks pretty dramatic here because of how it's presented, but you know, you can see the difference here. We're going from 6 to 100 to like 59 and a half, 59 to 60. So we are declining enrollment. And then back to the calendar, just to give us the map to follow to get to the budget vote. So thank you very much. We'll be sure to get this on the website this week, probably tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Andrea, anything about number 4?
This is an upcoming annual executive briefing on January 28th, right here at Riverhead. We have a course associated with the commitments and dinner will be served by students in the culinary program there at Harry Ward Technical Center. I do believe a representative from NISBA will be presenting legislature changes that we brought forth, which is we from right? Is it the legislative changes? Yes. Okay.
And now
So-
this is the executive budget.
We don't need a board approval, just if anybody's interested, please sign it. Because there's no cost associated. No, during the week.
Yeah, because I think the deadline's February 7th.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know for sure right now. All right, thank you. And number 5, BAC charge.
It's probably best is for me to read it to you. The committee's membership shall include community PTA representatives as nominated by the Board of Education. The goal of this year's budget is, if possible, is to limit the tax levy increase to what a tax cap would provide or lower if possible. The Budget Advisory Committee is hereby charged by the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools to, number 1, analyze the working draft document of the budget to ensure conformance with the goal of limiting expenditure increases. Number 2, consider the ratio between providing appropriate and expected levels of service to children and the impact of property tax increases on district residents. Number 3, committee members will be asked to attend all budget-related board meetings and, when necessary, meet as a group to review particular areas of the budget. Number 4, provide the Board of Education with a written and oral report by March 27th containing the committee's considerations regarding the proposed 2018-2019 budget. The term of the BAC is beginning January 24th, which is tomorrow, and expiring on April 10th. The proposed meeting schedule is to be determined by the committee, the superintendent, and the Board of Education. The structure of the committee is such that the committee shall elect co-chairpersons and a recorder for the taking of minutes, and the superintendent, assistant superintendents, and other management staff will be available for resource assistance, but will not be considered as part of the committee's membership. Operational procedures. A close liaison between the committee and the board shall exist. Minutes of meetings shall be sent to the superintendent, who in turn will provide copies of such minutes to the board. Approved minutes should be received within 7 business days from the date of the meeting, when the committee approves the meetings. Number 2, correspondence between the committee and board shall be coordinated through the superintendent to ensure that all board members are kept informed in a timely manner. 3, meetings of the committee shall be open to the public and shall be conducted in accordance with the spirit and intent of New York State's open meeting law. 4, collective bargaining issues related to terms and conditions of employment, including but not limited to salaries of employees, are not within the scope of the committee's charge and function in accordance with the New York State Public Employees Relations Law. Such issues are the sole responsibility of the Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools pursuant to state law. 5, the committee's final recommendations should be based upon agreement among the members. Until such agreement is reached, a report is usually not made without a minority report. The committee retains the right to determine the process of arriving at agreement. For example, consensus, majority vote, etc. 6. The committee's report and oral statements are to be made to the board and superintendent prior to any public release. The committee and/or committee representatives shall not release any oral or written statements and/or shall not release any majority or minority reports to the media. The release of committee reports and statements to the media is the sole responsibility of the Board of Education. Subsequent to the submission of the committee's reports to the school board, the committee and/or committee members may comment to the media if requested regarding the committee's work and recommendations. 7. The committee will submit its report at a budget meeting of the Board of Education. 8. The board may consider and vote upon the recommendations of the committee. However, the board is not obligated to follow committee recommendations. The Board of Education, as the official governance body, has the right to accept, reject, or modify all parts of such recommendations. 9. Following receipt of the committee's final report and recommendations, the Board of Education will review the document at a budget meeting. And finally, number 10, the Board of Education reserves the right to rescind the appointment of any committee member who does not comply with the official charge or who does not conform to the committee's operational procedures. This is part of the consent agenda, but it's presented here for discussion.
So we'll be voting on it later?
Yes,
Okay. That's it?
that's it.
All righty. Thank you.
Welcome.
Moving on to public comment. This section is 30 minutes in length. This section of the agenda gives the Board of Education an opportunity to recognize persons who wish to raise a question or to make a brief statement on items regarding school matters. The time available will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Persons wishing to speak are asked to adhere to the following guidelines. Step to the podium. Address the board president only. You may address one or more topics in the time allotted. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The board has the final decision in determining the length of time, the appropriateness of the subject being presented, and the suitability of time for such a presentation. Ms. Panico.
Can we just hold 1 second? Mr. Mahoney, can you get the screen back up?
Thank you.
I probably only have one question tonight, but I have a couple things. First of all, I mentioned to you, Linda, about the board charts that I saw earlier. Number 3, it is an open meetings law, it is subject to open meetings law for the committee. And then, so it can be videotaped, so how do you prevent that from being released? So they conflict with one another. You don't have to answer that right now, because I want to just get some other questions. The minutes from last week, the link wasn't up as of 5 to 7. It's up now, but when I was on my way here, when I left my house, it wasn't up yet. So they couldn't do it.
Since the day after yesterday.
And I just checked again, you know, and there was no link for minutes. Just wanted to point that out. The other thing that I just wanted to really talk about tonight was, community service. There was a big discussion on Facebook about community service, and this is, I guess, directed to you, Craig, because you guys are on the board, about whether making it mandatory or not. So there are some people that are for that, some people that are against it, some people that want community service but not mandated. You know, how you tell a kid that they can't graduate. So Mary Lou Santi, I don't know if you know her, Linda, but you know her. She used to be the athletic director here. She said that I could use her name. She actually did her studies for her administrative degree in something called service learning. Which I thought she explained it to me. She gave me an article on it. I thought it was a great idea. Maybe you guys can look into it. So in every subject area, you have teachers that volunteer to do this. So say Spanish, that's nice easy. And in the classroom, the teacher actually takes them to go say teach English as a second language to little kids, and that counts as community service. So it's done through the school, it's done in class, it's not a burden on parents, it just seemed like an all-around win to me. And again, it wasn't my idea, so maybe you'll consider it then. Just kidding. But Mary Lou Santi said if you have any questions, again, she did her whole thesis on that. So to contact her, she'd love to talk to you guys about it. And personally, I think it would alleviate all the mandatory outrage over volunteerism and how it's just mandatory doesn't make it volunteer and that whole discussion. So that's all I wanted to talk about today.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Quiet night.
Not that.
There seems to be a lot of, probably not again, but still.
Deidre, you gotta talk into the microphone. Sorry, you're low, you're quiet.
Just hearing again at home that they can't find a bathroom in 2 years. And they're sprinkling down hallways to try to get to the bathroom so they can come back and get to class on time. They're all closed, I guess, because of the smoking and whatnot. I know it's an age-long problem, but is there something that we can do so kids can get to the bathroom? I mean, it's been a problem for years, but
Well, it's been a problem that the bathrooms have been locked.
they're closed up because to avoid the kids going in and smoking or whatever they're doing.
And there's no outside monitor, like there's no teacher outside that bathroom for that period, I guess?
Like, aren't there always hall monitors, keepers on hall busy or something? That maybe station themselves by the bathrooms.
All right. We'll find out. Yeah.
I advise them to run to the nurse's office, but they can't get there on that.
Initially out of the
Nurses. There's a line at the nurses, usually, from what I hear.
Thank you. And one other thing, been bugging me for a while, again, I heard the kids talking about it, they had a discussion during the sports and all of that, about the AED machines, I guess it was called. And that, I don't know, are they where they should be within the school or within the coaches regarding sports and things? Or are they in a nonsense somewhere?
No, they're
Which is what, I heard. Specific to sports.
I've seen she was saying a couple of minutes.
The AEDs that were in the closet were there because we were awaiting the cases. The cases have since arrived.
Linda, can you put your microphone on? Thank you.
So there were, I believe, 2 AEDs that were purchased earlier this year. We were awaiting the cases to put them on the wall. They were in closets at the time. They're somewhat accurate because it's been up for months now. Yes, so if you enter each one of our phys ed facilities, each one of the gyms, you will see them on the walls now. So they're there. They're up. Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Looks like we have one more speaker.
Good evening, my name is Steve Wilkinson. It's my understanding that the teacher's contract is up, and I'd like to see some changes with regard to the coaching staff, in the best interest of children. I think that we should hire the most qualified person for coaching as opposed to hiring someone that just wants the job from in-house. It's commendable to have teachers apply for coaching jobs, but in reality, if they are not fully qualified to take on that position, they shouldn't. If it is your intention to hire a coaching staff based on availability, I think you are doing our kids a horrible disservice. Coaches need to rise to the occasion just as kids do if they want to prove themselves in the highlight of their ability. Having a coach staff that is knowledgeable and in tune with the children in their respective sport is an important part of their success. I'm hoping that we have an open and honest discussion about the future of the coaching staff, we can come to an agreement that is acceptable for the Connecticut community. Connecticut students, athletes deserve to have the best possible coaching staff there is. We as parents owe it to our children to help them succeed academically and athletically. I'm not here tonight to bash any of the coaches that were here, because I think we've had some great coaches. Mr. Santora spends hours, if you like him or not, spends hours with the kids. Mr. Ambrosini, and I can go on for a bunch more. But I've spoken to many families who feel the same way I do about having the best possible coach for our kids. They are willing to sign a petition and pen the board meeting to ensure that this happens. I understand that the times are changing, but the foundation of sports remain the same. You can't teach what you don't know. Kids won't learn if you can't teach it. It's that simple. Our school district will thrive as a result of having the best coaching staff. As elected officials, what to know you will address this issue. How will you address this issue? What are we doing about this? Just because you're a school teacher, you're allowed just to take a job? I don't understand how that works. I'm very confused about that. Because in the real world, if you don't know what you're doing, it doesn't work that way. So please explain to me what you mean by that, because I'm confused about that.
What I can tell you, sir, is whether, I'm not saying I agree with your position or not, but unfortunately, it is a contractual issue that is written into their contract.
I
So
understand
that being said, you are charged with upholding their contract, and the contract states that if a Connecticut unit member, teacher, / any of their unit members apply for the position, they would be given the position over a person who is not a unit member. Unfortunately, for some people that don't believe in that, some may or may not, that is part of the contract.
You've known in other school districts, they went that route outside, and the sports thrive like you won't believe. And anyone who knows about it can't deny that. But my biggest complaint is the contract's up, and there is nothing in life that's guaranteed. Nothing. It's up now. They had their 4, whatever years it was. Now it's up. As taxpayers, we should be able to sit in and say, let's make this the best. And I'm not saying if an in-house teacher is the best. Let him do it. God bless him. Let him do it. But if the outside guy who's willing to say, listen, these are all, this is what I learned. I have a wrestling program out of, I have this, I have that, I have all these good things. Why wouldn't we want that man in that room with those kids? I don't understand why we think of it any differently.
So just to take it a step
That's why I
further,
disagree with you.
sounds like you're worried about, we have certain coaches that are not teachers that have been coaching here for a long time and are very successful. So, you have a concern that they could just be gone, just...
Not even that, Mr. A. I'm concerned that they leave, and then who you put in there. And then anybody knows coaches, it takes a long time to get a good wrestling coach or a good varsity baseball coach. It takes years. Just because you played the sport, that don't make you a good coach. So we should be more open-minded about saying, let's come to the table and say, these 2 men who are perfect at whatever sport, soccer, baseball, whatever it is, I just don't think it's fair. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think it's right as a taxpayer and a business owner for 20 years to have someone tell me who's just going to be the person. I just don't think that's fair. It's not. It's not. I go to work every day, I pay the taxes, I have 2 kids that go to this school, and the taxpayers have the right to say what they feel. And it's not. If no one talked about this, it would be signed, and the president of the union would have it signed, and it would be over with, pushed to the side for another 4 years. It's wrong. That's what I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Before you leave,
Yes.
because I'm willing to put my name on the record. I work in Brentwood.
Yeah.
My contract says the same thing as the Connecticut contract. I do not agree with it.
Okay.
So, for the record, I think the best person should be hired for the job, and my contract states the same thing. So I'm willing to put my name to that. That being said, I can't speak to negotiations that are happening, but I can tell you it was on a list of things that we needed to discuss, and we did discuss.
And I'm not saying we hire an in-house or an out-house coach, and they have 1 or 2 bad years, and you want to get rid of them. There's got to be somewhat of a 5-year, like the real world. You have 5 years or 3 years to prove whatever it is, and give them a chance. Craig, how do you feel about that?
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Ms. Adams, how do you feel about that?
It's really inappropriate to have this conversation with people on their feelings, especially when the board speaks as a whole board.
I don't understand what you mean, Ms. Adams, I apologize. I don't understand what you mean. You have a feeling about it or you don't? Is it the best interest of the kids or it's not the best interest of the kids?
It's the contract that we have right now.
But again, the contract is up, Ms. Adams. Is it for the best interest of the kids or is it the best interest of the teachers?
I'll be honest with you, I'm very uncomfortable with this
Okay,
conversation.
you have a good night. Thank you for your time.
Can I
and
help
thank
you? You asked for clarity, though. I do want to, and I don't want you to leave disgruntled, because I hear...
Because we have a board member.
No, I
we
do,
have a
hold
board
on,
member.
hold on, just let me finish. I don't want you to leave disgruntled, but I think it's important, you asked in the beginning for clarity as to how this situation works. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, and everybody sits in a different seat, even though the contract is expired, which is what a lot of people may not understand, it is still currently the contract. And in order to change it, you need to negotiate, and the only way to negotiate that out of a contract is unfortunately through negotiation, which would be to give something else up. Now, you've heard where I stand.
Yes, thank you.
So, but it needs to be made clear that that's where a contract sits in New York State when it is expired, it still is in effect. And so, I don't want to mislead anybody by saying, well, it's up now, so we need to change it. We can't arbitrarily change it. We can make proposals to do that, and then it has to be agreed upon by all parties. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want you to leave disgruntled. I've told you where I stand. Mr. Ambrano's told you where he stands. It's not about that. It really isn't. You know, I think it's a very frustrating issue. We all feel.
I suggest you try to have a meeting with the president of the teacher union.
Well, seriously.
Yeah.
So how do we, as
I
board
think that's the
members, how
route
do
you
we
should
go
go.
to the next step and see who we sit down with, like what Mr. A just said? How do we sit down with them and go over this?
Call them up.
How do we do this?
You can call them up. Great. You said you want to get petitions and sign it. You can get those numbers and have a group of people maybe sit down with him and his leadership and his coaches who are teachers, so some are teachers in this district who may not feel, you know, and they're the people who can make that change. Unfortunately, we can only try and negotiate the change. They could come to us and say, as teachers, we don't want our contract anymore, we want the best for, that's up to them. They could do that, but that would maybe come from pushback on the parents' side.
Yeah, like anything else, it's numbers. You need numbers.
And thank you, and I
And
just
as a
wanted,
parent, I'd
Thank
be more
you.
than happy to stand on that side, as a parent.
and I just want to say, I'm not talking anything bad about the coaches that are here.
No, all the
Like I
coaches
said, I
have
think
been
some, we have some of the greatest coaches that we're in
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, we love it.
This
They're
isn't
like-
about, this isn't
they're
about a
sold.
particular coach.
But it's just
It's about a situation.
It's about a situation.
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, it's more about, you just don't get the last word to say what happens when you work as a taxpayer. That's the bottom line.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
How long is a coach hired for? What is that process?
Yearly.
I'm a little-
Yearly, it's an annual appointment, just for that season. They have to reapply every time.
What do they do in the summer or is it before?
Different times. We changed it this past year, usually, I think it was in the summertime. Depends on the season. Depends on the season.
How you guys doing?
Hello, sir.
So I'm a friend of Steve that was just up here, and my son actually graduated last year, so I don't even have a child doing anything. A lot of you know my son, he's been here accepting trophies and plaques for being a all-kind wrestler for the last 2 or 3 years, and I have the same frustrations. So I was listening to some of the things, the whole contract and whatnot, and, you know, I just found it, you know, interesting that we, you know, as parents, you know, I would take my son to tournaments off-season now. This is all on my time and his time. Go to different club sports, prepare him to be the best that he can possibly be. And then we get into a situation at our school where our coaches, quote unquote, and these are terms that were just basically, they were said by the coaches, we're not required to do those extra things that a lot of the other schools do. We're not required, so we just don't do that. Being that, and some of you may not even know what I'm talking about, but there's some tournaments that go on during the season, Eastern States being one of them, huge tournament. You get to wrestle other kids that have been county champs, state champs, or placed in the states. And every time a wrestler beats one of those wrestlers, you get points. So my son was 3 points away from going to the states last year. 3 points. And that all falls on the coach's shoulders. And I don't care what anybody says. we do a lot to prepare our kids to do, and wrestling is no joke. In my opinion, wrestling is probably the toughest, the most grueling sport there is. And from that, you probably get some of the best people afterwards, because it shows there's no other sport out there that shows the kind of determination and dedication that wrestling shows. I mean, the tortures that they go through on that, personal tortures. So you mentioned the whole contract being up, and it's a teacher thing. You know, when I mentioned the whole Eastern States thing to the coaches 3 years ago, because my son was brought up to wrestle, he was a great wrestler, and they brought him up in the I mentioned to some of the other coaches, and they said, basically, we don't do that. So last year, I mentioned it to one of the coaches, and they're like, well, just win the counties, and you'll go. Yeah, if you win the counties, if you come in first place, you go to the states, no matter what. But the rules have changed. Back when we wrestled, which Santoro was a coach when I wrestled, he was my coach, so and I'm 46 now. So back when we wrestled, there were no wild cards. There were no point systems. But today there is. So the rules have changed. So why are we still doing things the same way we did them 34 years ago, 35 years ago, today, when the environment around us has changed, and we have a coaching staff that is refusing to change with them? We're not giving our kids, well, and not all of them. So there's some kids that will wrestle and be average wrestlers, and they'll be perfectly happy. But then you have a handful of exceptional wrestlers that deserve the opportunity to get to where they ultimately where they want to be as the states, and we're holding them back. We are, and no matter how you look at it, we can have a more personal discussion about this, and I can explain things. I'm sure there's people on the board that can probably explain it just as well as I can. All I'm saying is, I would like to see the best possible. Now, whether they're teachers or not, honestly, I really don't mind. I just want the best possible person there that is going to be there for our wrestlers and for the exceptional wrestlers, and make sure that the kids that deserve to get that extra time in tournaments away, and we have funding for those tournaments, by the way. They're allowed to go to these tournaments. They have funds for that, but we still don't do it. So it just boggles my mind why we don't. So I just hope that this gets looked at very carefully, and we put the best people in place to promote our children and the wrestlers.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Last call, anyone else? All right, moving on to K, recommended action, personnel matters. Schedule 1, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence. Can I get a motion to accept? Motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Schedule 2, appointments, tenure, salary changes. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to L, the consent agenda. Items 2 through 22. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
One question, Mr.
That's enough out of you.
How much time do I have to try to put something together before I'm told that the contract is signed and we can't do anything now? When do we know, when is the contract?
We don't have an actual time frame, but if they wanted to move forward on making a change, you could write an MOA at any time for the contract.
Thank you.
If they wanted to move forward with it.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Stranded. So I don't know if that was like a hint, like a Levy here.
What did he say? 'Cause I was
Bruce is
thinking
like,
Bermuda.
she's stranded. So I don't know if that was a hint, like Levy. I gotta go, I'm not sure.
They were pumping it out and sending the water into someone's parking, into the church parking lot. No, it wasn't pumping.
It's fine, and I'm loud enough. Why not?
You don't get that till you turn 21. The third one grows at 21.
Right, that's what you said.
You know what, you might turn like the mics on over here. If I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, I'll be Don't pick on me, Andrea.
You don't have any heating problems.
You put on your own wall, then you put it. That's the part. What's going to be
Okay, now you know. I had trouble getting oil. You know, oil companies were so busy, I thought it was gonna run out. So I was gonna take my 5-gallon can
Okay.
to the gas station and get 5 gallons of diesel.
It's on.
You do what you gotta do.
No, yeah. Okay.
The burner was cycling.
He knows. I know, he knows.
Lisa,
It's a bad situation.
how is it still on? It's ours. Yeah, but it's still on.
It is?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
gotta be turned on.